Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Eastchester Union Free School District podcast. I'm your host, Joe Blute, and actually this is the 5th episode. I said it was the 5th episode the last time. It was not. It was the 4th episode with Elliot Sheldon. Today is our 5th episode, and I am thrilled to introduce our newest Director of Technology, Robert Jacoby.
Great to be here, Joe.
Welcome. So I do give a complimentary shout out before we begin each episode. And prior to your arrival last year, I was told by someone that, because I was asking questions about who's my new boss and whatnot, and this person informed me basically verbatim, they said, this is the best possible hire and the best possible thing to have happened in this position. And I guess, 8-9 months into this position, I can safely say that person was completely accurate.
Well, thanks, Joe. I don't know who that person was, but I hope that's true.
It was. No, it is. But seriously, community, get to know Rob Jacoby. He's incredible. We're going to get right into it. So, Rob, if you just want to actually give a brief introduction about yourself, we'd love to get to know you.
Sure. I'm very happy to be here. What you said about me coming here is what I got on, is Eastchester a good place? When I was looking to come here, and everybody seemed to think so, and I do fully agree. It's a great place. Really love the people I work with. The students are really, really kind. So my experience has been really good so far. Just about myself. I have two very young kids, 1.5 and 2.5, and so they're a huge focus when I'm home, along with my wife, and so that's been a really great experience as being new parents. And so when I came in the summer of last year, and sort of spent the beginning figuring out what's going on here, and that's always when you start somewhere new. It's like it's a learning curve, learn a new system, learn something new. But for me, my background is, I am an educator. I was a music teacher for 10 years, and then I became a director of technology. And while I taught, I was a technology coordinator as well. And so I've always really been into how does technology integrate into the classroom. That's my biggest focus. There's always a use of technology and then a physical organization of the technology, and they have to come together to make it as good as possible for all the teachers and the students. And so that's I really, really love that, and I love that when I taught too. How do we use new and innovative hardware and software to make our students learning better and more engaging.
So your appetite for the technological end was there even when you were a teacher?
Absolutely. Yep.
Interesting. Well, that's perfect, and this is why we're here now.
It is. Listen, I never saw myself in a position like this, but it's really the best of everything that I love to do.
Fantastic. Well, again, we're thrilled to have you, Rob, and we'll get into why right now. And actually, that's a perfect segue, because I do want to talk to you about the instructional technology. First of all, instructional technology, if you could just tell the audience what that is and why it's so important, and if you could give us an update where we are at in the community with that.
Sure. So instructional technology is the technology that touches the classroom, both hardware and software. It's how do the teachers use it? How do the students use it? It's for planning professional development, providing support, implementation of new initiatives as well. So anything that happens really in the classroom. Some people would blow that up to be a little bit bigger to include network infrastructure. So there's two sides. Those are the first two main areas that the technology team is responsible for: instructional technology and network infrastructure. Network infrastructure is all the pieces that connect us, whether it's a computer or a screen or hardwired or Wi-Fi or access points or network switches, all of that stuff. So you can argue that without that, you don't have instructional technology, which is true. But I see them in those two silos. We have the instructional technology. So we do have a really exciting instructional technology improvement plan that we unveiled at the board meeting this past month. And it's really going to get every single classroom district-wide. That's really important to remember, K through 12, to be consistent for all students, all teachers. It involves new interactive displays in front of the classroom. It involves laptop computers and monitors and ability to cast wirelessly for students to share their work on the screen, for teachers to work around the room rather than just being tied to a single desktop. And so that plan, which we did discuss at that public meeting, is really exciting.
I do want to unpack that a little bit for people that might not know what that looks like, what that means. So I guess my first question is, can you provide some specific examples of what we have coming based on
Sure.
what was announced at the last board meeting?
Yeah, so let's start with, what do the students see? So currently in most of the classrooms, not all, we have a lot of smart boards. Okay, that was the buzz term in the early 2000s, where smart boards were the big thing. And we still use that term as a generic, like a Kleenex is a brand of tissues, but it's, you might have Puffs Plus and you grab a Kleenex. Yeah, that's like the generic term. And so everybody talks about smart boards.
Well, just to cut you off, because I'm actually curious,
Sure.
Is Smartboard the brand?
Smart is the brand.
So what is that device actually?
So a smart board, the typical smart board, it's a white screen that has touch capability, but it involves a projector. Okay,
Right.
And so then that is hardwired to a computer, so that what you show on your computer shows on the board, and then the teacher has the ability to touch the smart board, and that acts upon whatever they're doing. So they can handwrite on the smart board, etc. The smart board has 3 color pens, a red, a green, and a blue. It has an eraser, and depending on the pen you pick up, the board knows what color you're writing with. Okay, that certainly was cutting edge. I mean, it was really the first widespread interactive board. Okay, where a teacher could touch the board and get some touch feedback.
But that technology is an interactive board.
It is it is an interactive display. That's how we say it now. I mean, it's really basically, it's a TV, right? So what are we getting now? We're getting rid of projectors. Projectors have a couple problems. They are a little bit difficult to see because they involve light bleed. So unless you have really dark rooms, it's a little hard to see from the back of the room because the sunlight bleeds into the room and it fades the projector. In addition, you simply have, there's a lot of logistical issues. You have bulbs to deal with, right, which are not only fade over time, but they also are fairly expensive to replace. And you're limited to a size on these smart boards that is not our current screen. Our current screens are a little bit wider, 16:9 ratio. The smart boards are typically 4:3. So if you remember, like square monitors, now we use a little bit of a longer monitor. So the new screens mirror what we currently use. So they're 86-inch. We call them touchscreen, but they're not actually touchscreen. The technology that it uses doesn't really matter for this conversation, but they are interactive. So they are touchscreen for all intents and purposes. And one of the best parts is you don't need to be physically wired into the board to show what you're doing. So a teacher, the second part of the renovation in the classroom is to get rid of desktops, which from a cybersecurity and budgetary standpoint are coming to end of life anyway. Computers have a lifespan for reasons of Windows updates and making sure that you're patched to really be secure in your environment, and eventually they need to be replaced. Everybody knows that computers don't last forever. So we're at a good point. We're at a point where our computers almost need to be replaced. So instead of replacing with desktops, we're replacing with laptops. And those laptops have a pen and the ability for a teacher to walk around the room while working with students, while helping, while individualizing, but also interacting with that computer while it's displaying for the rest of the class. So that's cool.
Yes, that's very cutting edge. Now, if a teacher wrote out, let's say the teacher's writing on their own device, their own laptop, that'll go to the board. If a teacher wrote on another kid's device or another kid's laptop or whatnot, will that be connected to the board as well, or is it only the teachers?
When we get really, that's like step 2.
Gotcha.
Eventually, yes. Like we will have technology, whether it's built into the board or not, we have a way to get anybody to cast to that board. For now, it's probably just going to be, let's say, teachers doing that, right? But the screen is also touchscreen. So students can come up to the board and interact with it.
Amazing. So first of all, it sounds all this technology is very inclusive, that again, everything is migrating to one area of focus, which is great. It's more efficient. I mean, I didn't even realize that the old smart boards, there were bulbs. There were so many external pieces of technology that required it to work. And the fact that this is all, what's the word? Internal, if you will.
Integrated.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. And you talk about inclusive, these boards are all going to get mounts that are manually adjustable. So the screen will go up and down. So what does that mean? That's not just, that's actually a really important aspect of it, because our youngest students, our kindergartners and first graders, they can't reach a board. And we do want students to interact with these boards. It's not just a TV. It's a aspect of instruction to get the students up there. Right? I think everybody remembers, when there were chalkboards or whiteboards or whenever you went to school, and the teacher might put a number of math problems on the board and the students would come up and do those. These boards have that ability so that the students can get up there and work on it. But without the height adjustable aspect, the students can't really do that. So when the teacher's got something on display, they can literally lift the board as high as they want so the students in the back can see. Right? Talk about inclusive. Everybody can see this board because it's bright, it's high definition. In fact, it's 4K, which is pretty impressive. So the students in the back are going to see it really crystal clear. And in addition, it'll be nice and high so they don't have to look around their friends. Smart boards right now, they're stationary. So that's a little bit of a drawback.
The brand New Line, is that what we're looking into?
Exactly. That's a brand. Listen, I mean, these boards are made by, I can name 4 or 5 different companies right now. Right. So this is what schools are trying to use, and all these companies are trying to produce something. I think New Line, I have personal experience. We already have started to use New Line in the district. I taught with New Line.
Right.
I think it's a really, really, really solid board that is both financially responsible because it's a good price point, but it's also really durable. And very, I'm going to knock on wood, but they typically have few problems. So hopefully, instruction never has to get interrupted by an issue with technology.
Yeah, no, that's fantastic. And I bring that up because I filmed one class very heavily this year at Waverly, and the teacher has a New Line, and it's on the carpet, and she's able to bring it up and bring it down, and the kids. And but that is a detail that is very important, because there is not. Every time I went into the class to film and she was showing something on the New Line, I've never seen a kid disengaged with the monitor being that low. And it's just more of an immersive experience. So, and it's those details that I feel that people who are not within the walls, they might not see. So this is why this is so important.
This is one of the best parts about being here. The team is so good. I mean, when you have people with 18, 20, 23 years of experience on your team, first of all, they take incredible pride in the district, but also there's something here for them. That speaks real volumes. And so between a bunch of us of tossing ideas back and forth, I'm glad you pointed out, there are a lot of little details that we've worked through over 6-8 months before we really came up with the plan of what we're about to do. Yeah. Because those details are going to be the small experiences that make teachers and students enjoy and not make it a wrestling match when you're dealing with technology.
Exactly. And what you just said, all of that experience from everyone in the tech department, they know those specifics, they know those details, and exactly the last thing that the tech department wants to have happen is, we did all this work and there are things that are not right for it. So the fact that we're ahead of the curve, or we're able to get ahead from all the experience, is absolutely invaluable. Thank you for providing that example. That's a great example of how our instructional technology is going to advance and get better. What else can we see specifically from instructional technology?
I think an important conversation, rather than getting into the details of every little thing physically, is now that we're going to level the playing field, now we can create a culture of learning together with technology. And I think that's what I'm really looking forward to. Because once now we're all on a level playing field, every teacher, I really want to create a culture where we can come together formally or informally to, we throw the term professional development around, and it is an important and it's a great term. But what about just learning, not just professional development where we're sort of developing and teaching? What about a professional learning community where we're working together on what works, what's some new stuff we figured out? Listen, all of the littlest things, when you add them together, that's when you become technologically savvy. It's all of the little things. We all know how to turn it on. But, well, I hope anyway, right? But it's all the little things that when you have a meeting with a bunch of people and somebody throws out an idea of what did I use this week, and you start gathering those ideas, that's when you get to be comfortable in the classroom.
That communal discourse, it's happening and it's going to continue to happen?
I want it to happen more in general, right? But my only point is I want it to happen at a more regular basis now that we will have a level playing field.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
So infrastructure and security, how important is this?
Well, none of the instructional technology happens without it. A shout out to Luis Lopez, who is our senior network specialist right now. He's been here since maybe most of the network was built, and so Luis is really integral in making sure the infrastructure, along with our network specialists as well as computer aides, they're the ones that are sort of behind the scenes with the technical aspect of things, and so that's really important, because what I think goes overlooked a lot when you talk about responsibilities of a technology department is how much more is part of technology now than 5 years ago, than 10 years ago, than 15 years ago, than 20 years ago. 5 years ago, nobody in the technology department thought, well, let me say 10 years ago. 10 years ago, nobody in the technology department thought that they would have any responsibility in locks on doors, for instance, right? Now come along key cards and integration with door locks and the physical and the technical and the et cetera. And what you don't think is everything like that talks to each other, they all feed back to the brain, which is the network closet. So somewhere along the line, everything is physically connected, right? If you're on Wi-Fi, which is not typically how we install permanent devices, that's maybe for a laptop or something or a phone, but everything's physically connected somehow. And so when we talk about security, we're undergoing a bond project renovation right now where all of our hallway doors, all of our classrooms and offices are getting electronic locks, right? And that's not only a way to systematize entry to classrooms, but it's also it's mostly a safety feature, to be honest. Keeping I believe it's strategic priority 1 for the board is school safety. And so it's something that we don't love to think about, but it's something we should think about and prepare for the worst and hope for the best, right? And so with this system, if we ever need a lockdown, every door will lock automatically. So it's immediate, it's technology that is providing safety to students. So that's new. No technology department thought that was the case 10 years ago. Okay? How about cameras? Okay? We're adding dozens and dozens of new cameras, getting different angles, getting blind spots right through this bond project, safety and security bond project. And you have the physical installation of the camera, but then you have the integration of the cameras. It's the same with everything. You install, you connect, and then you implement. Then you connect it to the system, whatever that system might be, whether it's a door access system or a camera system or whatever, really. And so all of that is infrastructure and security. It's stuff that's like, it's not in the classroom, but it's what we need as a school to operate from a technology standpoint.
Absolutely. And so much of that, there's people that aren't going to be able to see those details. I mean, there's people within the building that don't see some of those details. And it was funny because a picture of the closet was recently shared at the board meeting, and Luis did an amazing job organizing. He did an unbelievable job fixing it and organizing it. But then they showed the before and after photo, and it was pretty eye-opening. I mean, again, I walked by the closets, and, you know, it's something that doesn't cross my mind, but then seeing the difference in what the closet is supposed to look like as opposed to what it did before, yeah, that's something that isn't on the surface for people to really look at.
Yeah, and a project like that is not just about looking organized either, and it's visually very telling of where our goals are taking us, and what, thankfully, we have capability of doing within our own team. Like you said, Luis handled that closet, and that is a ton of work that not everybody can do, because you have network switches, which are really advanced configurations, and we did it all in-house. And so not only is it making it neater, but it's providing an easier way to connect more devices. It's future-proofing us. It's making us more secure. It's giving us the ability to troubleshoot when something's necessary. When you have a nest of wires, it's like, oh gosh, where does this one go? And how do we troubleshoot? Why isn't this connected?
Yeah. You know, the way you describe it, it sounds like it was just its own entity, and there was technology, almost as if everything was just in different categories, and that's not the case today. It sounds like a big spider web, if you will, and then everything's just kind of connected to that core or that center of it.
Listen, teachers used to have a chalkboard or a whiteboard, and then maybe they had email and the internet.
That's about it.
Right? I mean, at the core, and then maybe eventually we started taking attendance on computers and things like that, and it just it's exploded, and it's good. It's just everybody, I believe, does and should understand that, you know, the stuff is not just plug in and work. You could imagine. I mean, we've undergone a lot of I've personally put in a lot of energy into making photocopying easier, right? For teachers, and it takes a lot of integration to get things to talk to each other and work appropriately. Like, for instance, any teacher could print to a copy machine now, and when they go to that copy machine, they put in their code, and out comes their prints, right? That doesn't just happen overnight. But our goal now is that they can actually take their badge instead of putting in any code. And as soon as they walk up to the copy machine, they put their key card on and they get logged in. And so we're close. Yeah. But there's all these little technical integration points that have to happen, and something has to talk to something else. And what language does that speak? And then we have to talk to something else. And that's actually something I enjoy really a lot, actually, is figuring out how to get those integrated.
Well, we're very happy that you do enjoy that, because it sounds it just sounds like it's a lot of work. The work can maybe sometimes be tedious. It's just very specific and
granular, very, very detailed. But what I will say is, and the whole department has the same ideal, is let's set it up the right way. Because when you do, it's just really rewarding. We have fully gone to automated onboarding and offboarding for staff, for instance, and students as well. So when staff come in, all of their accounts get created automatically, and they get set up and permissions granted and all that stuff. That's another integration project that was really fun to figure out. How do you get it set up right?
The innovation of all of the infrastructure that you're talking about, is it still something that it would look like behind the scenes? Does it still look like something from 10 years ago?
Luckily, it is almost the same.
Okay.
Everything still connects with the same. Listen, we've gotten faster abilities within the same type of wire. And what wire connects everything? It's Ethernet, right?
Right.
And luckily, the Ethernet cable it's faster now. We have faster versions of it, but it still will communicate. It still will connect most things, unless it's a very old version of Ethernet cable. But pretty much the difference now is, like, how do we connect? There's a few things. We can now connect computers to displays with one single cable. There were times during progression of trying to get to high definition where we would have you could have up to 5 cables just to connect audio and video. Now we have 1.
Yeah.
So cabling, from a outside of the wall has definitely improved. From USB to blah, blah, blah.
Well, I was going to say, every time like you replace a television, it's crazy. You're throwing out 10 wires and you get your new TV and you plug one in the wall and, yeah.
But behind the walls, it's pretty much the same.
So there's still as many cables with the switch and in the closet as there were 10 years ago.
Wow. Much more.
Oh, more. Okay.
Well, think about it. Every 4 doors that we have with a lock on it requires 1 access point gateway to those doors. So now if we have 100 classrooms, that's 25 gateways. Every one of those gateways needs a port in the closet.
Yeah.
Okay. If we have every hardwired door, every external door, all hardwired, every one of those needs a port in the closet. Every camera needs a port in the closet.
Wow.
So that's where you see the increase in amount of cables,
Right.
especially going back to the closets.
So even more of the reason for all the unbelievable work that's going on that people don't say.
It's very rewarding when it all works.
For sure.
And when it doesn't,
you hear about it, right?
Sweating. we hear about when it doesn't work more than we do when it does.
This is why we're doing this, because we want everybody to see how innovative the technology is right now in this district, where it's going, led by you, sir.
No, appreciate that.
So data. Let's take a deep dive into data. And this is great, too, because I have no idea what you're going to talk about with the data.
Yeah, listen, that's the third sort of main component of what the technology team is responsible for. So we run the student information system. A shout out to our database specialist, Beth Beardsley. Everybody knows Beth because she's the data behind the scenes. So in the student information system, that's where we keep our grades. That's where we keep our attendance. That's where we keep disciplinary records, etc. And all of that feeds to what's called the data warehouse that feeds up to the state reporting. Okay, so the state requires us to report certain information about students. And all of that, again, is really detailed, really coded, 3,000 plus students, 500 plus staff, all of which have an element in figuring out how to get to the state, whether it's staff certifications and making sure that the staff is teaching classes that they're certified to teach, or students are receiving program services for the correct amount of time, program services like whether they're in E&L classified and what exams do they have to take? Do they take the New York State 3 through 8 testing? Do they take a NYSA test? These are all the different state tests that we have to deal with. And so all of that, including the coordination of state testing, sort of under the data umbrella, that all falls with our department.
So school data is very intrinsic to keeping tabs on essentially everything that's going on with the student.
Data tells a story. Data tells part of a story. You don't get the whole story in the data. So you don't want to ever be in a situation where you say that data tells us everything about the student. It doesn't. But it is a great place to begin to think and talk to students. Students are individuals. They're not numbers. The numbers don't give us everything about a student. And so we're in the process of actually implementing what's called a data dashboard. It's kind of a new thing that a lot of school districts are looking into. What it does is it takes all of our data on a student and puts it in one place, so that when we're ready to have a conversation with a student, maybe a guidance counselor calls a student in. Student's having a little bit of a hard time from a social emotional lens. So the student comes in, we see a data dashboard on that student. Okay. What's going on? Over the last month, we've seen 10 more disciplinary incidents. Okay. The student's been absent 5 more days than they were last month. All right. There's a trend here. Right. So the data tells part of the story. The data doesn't tell us the why. So it sort of informs us to really start to get to know our students and really listen and treat every student with that individual attention that they need and deserve.
What's changing with it to make it more efficient or to learn more from the data that we're collecting?
The platform that we're going toward is not actually giving us more data, just to clarify, but it is bringing it into one place.
I see.
But 10, 20 years ago, we weren't taking assessments of students 3 times a year.
I see.
Where we're trying to see how they grow. We're trying to, we're collecting more data. Well, I will tell you one of the things that we try to look at is called longitudinal data, right? How are they progressing over years in school? And one of the wrenches in that, of course, is COVID. And that changed a lot of things, because if you want to look at state testing, for instance, as a metric to determine students' ability and growth, it's really hard to do, because we didn't take the test during COVID, and then the year after it wasn't really valid data. Even the state says that we had it. I think we were opting out and things, but there were 2-year lull in that data. So now how do you compare that? I don't know. I mean, you see it. That's why I just say you take it with a grain of salt.
Yeah.
You take the data and you see, well, what's a possible story? What's a possible rationale?
I see. Yeah, it's almost as if you can't evaluate those years.
You
in a
can't.
way.
You may not. What you can't do is you can't compare it year to year. Right. It's not a bad metric to use to compare yourself and see, okay, well, statewide, what's the average? Are we above average, or within Westchester, where do we fall? Just to see that we are on target with our learning goals.
And to have it all consolidated to one program, though, that will really help speed up finding other variables that could be impacting whatever it is that people are trying to figure
cross-referencing, how does this affect this?
Yeah.
When you have it in 5 different places, it's hard to see that.
And it's all
but when
right,
you have it as a dashboard and right in front of you, we're
it's
like,
all there for you.
Wow, how can we respond to what this student needs?
So the response time is really going to increase.
I think it will. I think it will show us some things about students that maybe weren't as clear or as obvious prior to that.
Do you want to comment on the TV studio and the auditorium? Just to let the district know that we have both. I mean, I think people in the district are very aware of the auditorium. I think people are a little less aware about the new 2.0 TV studio that we have right now. So if you just want to comment on
the TV studio and the auditorium are definitely, that's the fourth big area of the technology team. So Joe Blute here runs the TV studio, and Nick Sochan is the auditorium manager. And so these are things that Eastchester is really, really lucky to have. The TV studio produces our videos. It provides a place for students to learn how to produce videos, the production, etc. And the auditorium is just an incredible space. The technology integration in the auditorium, the aesthetic beauty of the auditorium, the size, the versatility, is really very cool. And even at that, we're still looking at areas to improve, whether it's lighting or sound treatment. But those are resources that I think everybody is fairly aware of how lucky we are to have those resources, and they're extremely valuable, not just for presentations, but for our students.
Yeah, for the students, for the district, for the community, to see the response this year with the product that the TV studio has been able to create, it's really been fantastic to just to provide that transparency.
And you and I have had a lot of conversations about the planning of what's produced out of the TV studio, and I think that's really important. There are certainly other districts that have TV studios and the such, but I fail to find as many as productive as kudos to you for these consistent series where we're seeing things that are happening in the classroom, outside of the classroom, for extracurriculars, for administration, for budget, for student awards or student.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean. And I know what you mean. And I just want to give one last kudos to you with the TV studio. You have made it an absolute joy to create, to produce, to direct, to do everything there. I can't tell you how many people would be very micromanagey, or they'd be very scared about what the product would be. And from day one, when you came in, you gave me a wonderful compliment and you just let me go. And I remember what I said to you. I said, I want to make you look good and make your job easy. But you've allowed me to do that. with the creative freedoms, I can't thank you enough, because it really, to do something like that, people have to be on the same page, and I can't thank you enough for all of that. So the technology is, it's really in a great spot right now here. What are some areas where you feel the improvement isn't going to stop in the future, if you will?
Listen, I mean, improvement in technology will never stop. So when you stop looking for what's the new thing, you're falling behind already. So that's why we're trying to think of how to future-proof ourselves. And so the full technology plan, in addition, between the classroom technology and the network infrastructure, is to get us a little ahead of the curve, get us a baseline, then start thinking about where do we go from there. And I think we've come up with a plan as well.
And what's the title of the plan? I'm sorry to cut you off.
It's just our technology improvement plan.
Gotcha.
There's no fancy title. It's the only fancy aspect is what the students and teachers will see.
Right.
I also do want to mention we've come up with a budgetary plan for this that I think is really incredible, because we're leveraging the ability to collect state aid on our purchases, so that if we're purchasing a $2.5 million project, it's only costing us under $1.5 million, because we're getting reimbursed for a lot of that. And we don't have to get into that too much here, but I do want everybody to know that it's a big lift, but it's one that I do think that everybody sees the need for. And the question I kept asking was, how do we get this done the most responsible way financially? And we really put a lot of time into making sure that plan was cohesive and kept it affordable and spread it out so that it wasn't a huge lift to the taxpayer for any one given year.
Well, two things. One, I don't think anyone's going to be upset to hear that it's going to cost less than what it sounds like it will be, number one. So that's a great thing to mention. And the second thing is, and I have another first-person example on the daily that includes you regarding technology, but technology is an area where you really can't take your foot off the gas pedal. And, how many emails I see from you on like a weekly basis where you're warning people about certain scams or certain phishing emails. I mean, just from a security standpoint. And, in the world, we're in a cyber world now, and you have to be up to date with, all of what could possibly happen with that. So I think that's another reason where technology, you just have to be so up to date with it, because unfortunately, there are a lot of unfortunate cunning events that are also evolving, so we have to evolve with it as well.
Absolutely. Listen, cybersecurity, it's no secret, is one of our highest priorities. Keeping our student information safe is not only our legal responsibility, it's our ethical responsibility as well. Our cybersecurity has become such an enormous conversation among tech directors, data protection officers, because you can't stay ahead of the curve enough.
Yeah.
You just have to put in a plan of how to do your best to do it, and put in, fail safes when something does happen, where we do our best to protect ourselves from an unfortunate event. Okay. And I will not say we've been lucky, because you never know. You could be the next target of an attack. But what I will say is we're incredibly secure, as well as we could be. We've undergone our internal audits, our controllers audits, and we come out in a really good place, and are continually improving what it takes to make us our information secure.
That's very good to hear that we're up to date with it, and that we will continue to be. Artificial intelligence.
Oh.
AI is here, as Dr. Valenti put it at his meeting in the beginning of the year. It's out of the bottle. You can't put the genie back in the bottle. So do you just want to comment on AI today? And I guess first, how would you describe AI? We know it's artificial intelligence, but how does it work?
AI is not new. What is new since the first articles of ChatGPT, what is new is the idea of generative AI. Okay, and maybe that's not even new. Maybe it's just the widespreadness and the advancement of it. And generative AI is the ability of something artificial, a computer, a piece of software, to generate a piece of something, like a paper, like a poem, like an article, or an essay, or whatever it is. And I think that's one of the biggest differences between a lot of the tools we've had. We've had disruptions to education forever, right? I mean, something new always comes in, right? Think of when the calculator came out, not when it came out, but when it started to get used in schools, and everybody says, no, their kids are never going to learn how to do math again, right? And now a calculator is required because a calculator is a tool to assist in doing something.
Right.
A calculator, when used correctly, lets us find more advanced answers rather than just strictly rote memory of what is 2 + 2. And that's all important too. I mean, there's no elementary school in the country that's not still doing times tables, right? We all want to be able to do that. But generative AI is different. So like spell check is assisting. A calculator is assisting.
Yeah.
But generative AI is completing.
Right.
And I think that's the biggest difference of why this has become such an evolution or revolution in education.
And that's amazing that you said that, because as you were saying all of this, in my head I was saying, because even I had a little bit of a blurry picture of it, but the way you described it is perfect, because from what you're saying, all the technology and the innovations of technology in the past, they would be informing you, but they weren't the actual producer of what it was that needed to be accomplished. Now it can be the producer of whatever task is at hand.
It can be. And I think that the worry is, the biggest worry among educators is that it's a tool that will strip students of the ability to actually do something, whether it's write a paper or learn how to write a letter or learn different types of sentences or whatever it might be. And so we have to balance ingenuity and amazement with a fear and a worry of what it means to education. What I will say is, just from a district standpoint, I don't want to give too much of my own opinion right now, because we're putting together an AI task force. It's going to involve both staff and students. Our first meeting is in May, and what our goal is pretty much is to come up with a community position on AI, okay, where we come up with a sort of a set of guidelines of how do we as a district see AI and want it to be used. From my standpoint, I think there is a place for it, and there are a time where it doesn't need to be used. I think there's got to be some kind of balance, and I think that task force will discuss that. And it is, and one of the learning goals of that task force is education on AI, because we're all learning it. I mean, some of us in central office have been sitting on committees all year, discussing and learning about AI, so that we have to learn it too. I mean, it's coming so fast and furious that if you're not staying up on it, how can you discuss it?
Yeah.
So part of that committee is going to be learning about it, but also discussing the way forward.
That's great to hear. That's fantastic that the district is going to have a say in the direction of, how we're going to use it. Because, it's something that is unavoidable at this point, and, we're going to have to adapt to it in a certain way. Whatever the community is, whether it's education or government, I'm sure there's how many conversations have happened at that level. And wherever, I mean, in show business recently, everyone's had a conversation about how will this be used, what are the boundaries, what are the parameters. I don't want to ask you what you think, because you don't want to give your opinion, but
I'll give this much. I do think we need to embrace it to an extent.
Mm-hmm.
I think we do need to stop. I do think we need to stop immediately jumping to the negative of it in education. Okay? I think if we do that, we're starting from a bad place.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it should be an open field of do whatever you want. But I do think if we start to see it in a lens of what can it be good for, then the what shouldn't it be used for will become clearer, rather than starting with a list of negatives.
That was perfect. Literally what you, because then, right, if you're focused on, well, where do we use it, where is it positive, then by default, well, in the other areas, we're not going to use it. So to your point, it's not even worth.
And who wants to start in a culture where we're starting with the negative? Forget about AI. Like we don't want to go into a meeting with preconceived notions of fear and worry and all negativity when there are realities.
Right.
You
just said the word. I think a lot of it does come from fear from all humans, right? And, I'd be lying too if I, said that I haven't been fearful of it at some point. I think, because we are, I'm pretty sure I'm right about this, but in the history of our species, I don't think we've ever embarked on a technology, again, that can completely substitute what we're able to produce and do. I think every point of technology has helped us make life easier and make it more efficient, but I don't think there has been a technology that posed a possibility to completely replace, if that makes sense.
To be clear, today, and hopefully in the very distant future, it cannot completely replace.
Right.
Okay? AI cannot feel empathy. Okay? AI cannot produce voice. AI. These are things that you read about from certain authors that, there's a human element that it cannot do.
Right.
And so, how many people went through COVID and you're just tired of virtual meetings?
Yeah.
We as humans have a desire to hang with each other, to talk through things, to see each other. I think. I mean, I'm much more productive when I'm sitting in a room with everybody than I am, sitting behind a screen and, people are maybe less willing to participate. I don't know. I just think it's Zoom fatigue,
Yeah.
and that human element can't be replaced by AI. So while I do think it is a fairly revolutionary technology, I don't think it's the end of humanity.
I hope you're right, but I also agree with you. I agree with you wholeheartedly about human beings will always still want to do human being things. I completely agree with you.
We have an artistic instinct.
Yeah.
Okay. I love to cook.
I
don't love to clean. I would like AI to be involved
really
in cleaning.
love to cook?
I love to cook.
I didn't know that about you.
If I can get a box, an AI box, and throw in all the ingredients, or better yet, they're just in the fridge and I can click a button and AI can cook me dinner, I would hate that.
Right.
Why would I want that?
Right.
If I'm a writer and I love to write,
Well,
why would I want to talk to ChatGPT and say write an essay?
Right.
Yeah. If you're a golfer, there's a golf club out there that you can hold on to the ball and you click a button and it hits it.
I didn't even know this.
Far.
Really?
Oh yes.
I gotta look this up. Wow.
It's no fun.
Right.
It's more fun to hit it into the woods and get mad at yourself and try to get it better the next time. If you're a baseball player, what if you could stand at the plate and hold a bat and the ball comes, or maybe it just doesn't come and the ball just shoots out of the bat? It's not fun.
It defeats the entire purpose of what we're doing.
Exactly.
Yeah. Rob, this is a fantastic conversation.
I enjoyed it.
Yeah, I very much did too. I never knew you liked to cook. Wow.
Love to cook.
That's amazing. I know you're a foodie, but
that's true.
Is there anything else that you want to say?
No, listen. I definitely enjoyed it. I'm grateful to be a part of the Eastchester community. I grew up in the area and have always been fond of this area. So it's really, really great to come here and participate. And I'm looking forward to everything that the future holds.
Well, we are too. We are, especially with you in this position. Thank you for everything that you have done. Please continue to keep being your brilliant self because it is invaluable to everything that's happening. But thank you so much, Rob.
I need to give a shout out to the whole team. Luis Lopez, Greg Slawecki, Joe Vitale, Lisa Balsamo, Beth Beardsley, Joe Blute, Nick Sochan, Eder Lopez came on with us recently. It's a great team, and I think everybody sees how hard that group of people work. Sometimes behind the scenes, sometimes quietly, and you don't necessarily see those workings. And everybody's been really great and appreciative of when everybody comes together and solves problems together.
And he's not lying too, because anytime I get an email about something that went down, probably within the next 20 minutes it's solved. So
that would be fine.
But it happens. Yeah. No, team's incredible. Rob, thank you so much.
Pleasure, Joe.
Ladies and gentlemen, we'll see you on the next episode. Take care.